The pain shook in my hand, like it already knew what my heart refused to accept. My name is Zainab Folawe, and on that grey Tuesday morning, inside a cold lawyer's office in Lagos, I was about to sign away the only thing that still made my life make sense. My son, Tobena, 3 years old, big round eyes, a laugh that could fix a broken day, and I was giving him away. You don't understand pain until you've held a child at 2 a.m., rocking him to sleep on an empty stomach, knowing tomorrow you'll have nothing to feed him with. My husband, Damilare, had died in an accident 8 months earlier. The small provision store we built together, gone, swallowed by debt. The landlord had given me 7 days to pack out. 7 days. I begged. I cried. Nobody answered. A woman from the agency sat across from me, smiling that practice smile people wear when they're about to take something from you and call it help. "This is best for the child," she said softly. "He'll have food, school, a future you cannot give him right now." I looked down at Tobena, asleep on my lap, his small fingers curled around my wrapper like he was holding on to me without even knowing what I was about to do to him. My chest burned, my throat closed. I could hear my own heartbeat banging in my ears louder than the ceiling fan above us. "Sign here, madam," the lawyer said, sliding the paper closer with 2 fingers, like he did this every day and felt nothing. I thought about the empty pot in my kitchen, the eviction notice folded inside my bag, the neighbors who no longer greeted me because death makes you invisible to people who once called you sister. I picked up the pen. "Mommy," Tobena mumbled in his sleep. Just one word, and it nearly broke me in half. I signed. The room went silent, except for the sound of my own breathing, ragged and shallow, like I had just run from something I could never outrun. The woman took the papers, smiled again, and said the words that would haunt me for years. "You're doing the right thing." I walked out of that office with empty arms and a heart full of holes, not knowing that the day I lost everything was the same day my story was about to change, but not before it broke me completely first. Lagos doesn't wait for you to heal. It moves, loud and fast, while you're still bleeding inside. I walked from that lawyer's office with nothing, no bag of clothes, no child's hand in mine, nothing but the weight of what I had just done on my chest like a stone. I didn't even know where I was going. My legs just carried me, past Danfo buses honking, past hawkers calling out prices, past a wall that kept spinning like my whole life hadn't just collapsed. I ended up at Oshodi Market, sitting on a wooden bench outside a closed shop, crying so quietly that people walked past without noticing, because in Lagos, everybody is carrying their own private war. That night, I slept in my cousin Funke's parlor. She let me stay, but I could feel the way her eyes avoided mine, the way her husband cleared his throat whenever I entered a room. 3 weeks became unbearable. I knew I had to find work, any work, before I became a permanent burden nobody wanted to carry. I started hawking sachet water under the sun, balancing a tray on my head from 6 in the morning till the streets emptied at night. My feet cracked, my skin darkened from heat. Some days I made 2,000 naira, some days nothing. But it wasn't the hunger that hurt the most. It was the silence in my chest where Tobena's voice used to be. Every child I saw on the street reminded me of him. His laugh, his small hands, the way he used to grab my wrapper and refuse to let go. I started asking around about the agency that took him. Nobody had answers. Phone numbers disconnected, office address locked, abandoned, like he never existed. Something cold crawled into my stomach. Then one evening, hawking near Allen Avenue, a man on a motorcycle slowed beside me. He wore a security uniform, sweat on his brow, eyes nervous like a man carrying something heavy. "Madam," he said quietly, "are you the woman looking for the child taken by Mama Pat's agency?" My tray nearly fell from my head. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, that's me." He looked over his shoulder like someone might be watching us. "You need to hear what I know," he said, "but not here." Before I could ask another question, a black SUV pulled up across the road, and the man's face changed instantly from urgency to pure fear. He sped off without another word, leaving me standing in the middle of the road with my heart pounding and more questions than I had when the day started. If this story is gripping you already, don't go anywhere. Hit that subscribe button now, because what Zainab uncovers next will shock you to your bones. I didn't sleep that night. The security man's words echoed in my head. You need to hear what I know. Why did he run? Who was in that SUV? And why did the agency's office disappear like smoke? 3 days later, he found me again. This time near a quieter spot, near a closed petrol station, far from prying eyes. His name was Emeka. He used to work security at the agency's old building before it shut down overnight. Madam, he said, voice low. That agency was not what it claimed to be. Mama Pat, the woman who runs it, she doesn't take children to give them better homes. She sells them. My knees went weak. The world tilted. Sells them? I repeated, the word tasting like poison in my mouth. To rich families, foreign adopters, people who pay heavy money and never ask questions, Emeka said. Mothers like you, desperate, broken, you are the easiest targets. You sign because you are drowning, and she throws you a rope that's actually a chain. I felt my chest cave in. I had signed my son away to a trafficker, not a savior. The guilt was suffocating, thick like smoke filling a room with no windows. Where is he? I grabbed Emeka's arm, my voice cracking. Where is my son? He hesitated, looking around again. I heard them mention a transfer. A family already paid. He might be moved out of Lagos within days, maybe out of the country. The ground felt like it was disappearing beneath me. Days. I had days, maybe hours, before my son vanished forever into a system designed to swallow him whole and erase every trace. Please, I begged, tears streaming freely now. Help me stop this. Emeka looked torn, fear and conscience fighting behind his eyes. If they find out I talked, they will kill me, madam. But I can't carry this guilt either. I'll help you, quietly. That night, I barely breathed. I kept seeing Tobena's face, hearing him whisper "Mommy" in his sleep before I signed those papers. I made a vow right there, sitting on a cracked plastic chair in the dark. I would burn this whole operation down before I let them take my son across any border. But Lagos has a way of testing your courage right when you think you have found your strength. The next morning, 2 men I didn't recognize came looking for me at the market, asking questions, describing my face to traders like they were hunting something. Emeka's warning rang in my ears. If they find out I talked, they will kill me. Someone had already talked, and now it wasn't just my son's life on the line, it was mine too. Fear has a smell. It's sharp, metallic, like blood and sweat mixed together, and that morning I could smell it on myself. I abandoned my tray of sachet water right there at Oshodi Market and disappeared into the crowd, weaving through traders and buses, my heart slamming against my ribs. I couldn't go back to Funke's house. If those men were asking questions, they'd find that address easily. I called Emeka from a borrowed phone, voice trembling. They are looking for me. What do I do? Meet me by the old railway line behind Yaba Market by 7 p.m., he said. I found someone who can help us properly. A journalist. She's been investigating Mama Pat's network for months. You are not the only mother this has happened to, Zainab. That hit me harder than anything else. Not the only mother. How many women had stood in that same office, pen shaking, signing away children they loved more than their own breath? I spent the day hiding in a church compound, sitting quietly among worshippers, using prayer as cover for my panic. By evening, I made my way carefully to the railway line, checking over my shoulder every few steps. Emeka was already there with a woman named Bisi. Sharp eyes, recorder in hand, the kind of woman who looked like she'd seen too much and decided to fight back anyway. I've been tracking Mama Pat's agency for 8 months, Bisi told me.
3 children traced to a network shipping kids abroad under fake adoption papers. I have names, locations, but I need a mother brave enough to go on record, someone who can prove they were deceived. My hands were shaking, but for the first time since I signed those papers, it wasn't from grief, it was from purpose. I'll do it, I said, whatever it takes to get my son back. Bisi nodded slowly. There's a transfer happening in 2 days. A private jet, small airstrip outside Lagos. If we move fast with the right people, police, child protection agency, we can intercept it before he's gone. 2 days. That night, as we planned in whispered voices under a flickering streetlight, my phone, the one Emeka had lent me, buzzed with an unknown number. I answered, and a woman's voice, calm and venomous, spoke into my ear. "Mrs. Folawi," Mama Pat said, like she was tasting my name and enjoying it. "I hear you have been asking dangerous questions. Stop now and forget your son ever existed. Continue and you will regret the day you signed those papers for reasons far worse than losing him." The line went dead. My whole body went cold, but underneath the fear, something else was rising. Something fierce, something a mother only finds when there's nothing left to lose.
I had never been so afraid and so determined at the same time in my entire life. Bisi walked through the night, contacting a child protection officer she trusted, named Mrs. Adebayo, a no-nonsense woman who had spent 15 years fighting against exactly this kind of crime. By morning, we had a small team: Bisi, Mrs. Adebayo, 2 plainclothes police officers, and Emeka, who had risked everything to stand with us. "The transfer happens tomorrow at dawn," Emeka confirmed, sweat on his brow despite the morning cold. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in Bisi's small apartment, holding a photo of Tobena that Emeka had managed to get from the agency's old files, the only proof I had that it was still real, still mine, still somewhere out there waiting. I prayed like I had never prayed before, not the polite prayers you say in church on Sunday, but the raw, desperate kind that comes from a place with no more pride left to protect. We arrived at the airstrip before sunrise, hidden in tall grass beside the dirt road, watching as a black SUV, the same one I'd seen that day on Allen Avenue, pulled up beside a small private plane. My heart stopped. 2 women stepped out, and between them, held tightly by the hand, walked a small boy in a white shirt, looking lost and afraid, rubbing his eyes against the early morning light. Tobena. I nearly screamed his name right there, but Mrs. Adebayo's hand clamped firmly over my arm. "Wait," she whispered. "We need them to load the documents. We need evidence, or this woman walks free and tries again with another child." Every second felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. I watched my son being walked toward that plane, his small feet dragging in the dirt, and I had to stay silent, stay hidden, trust a plan that felt impossible. Mama Pat herself arrived minutes later, dressed sharply, smiling that same practice smile as she handed papers to a foreign-looking man waiting by the aircraft. "Now," Mrs. Adebayo said. The officers moved fast, surrounding the airstrip from both sides. Shouting erupted. Mama Pat's smile vanished, replaced by raw panic as she realized she was surrounded. I didn't wait for permission. I ran. "Tobena!" I screamed, my voice tearing out of me with everything I had left. His head turned, his eyes found mine across that dusty airstrip, and for one breathless moment, the entire world stood still. "Mommy!" He screamed, cut through the chaos like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. He broke free from the woman holding his hand and ran toward me, small legs pumping as fast as they could across that dusty ground. I dropped to my knees and caught him in my arms, holding him so tight I was afraid I would never let go again. He smelled of fear and innocence and everything I had almost lost forever. I cried into his hair, repeating his name over and over like a prayer finally answered. Behind us, the officers moved swiftly. Mama Pat tried to run, but there was no way to go. Mrs. Adebayo's team had blocked every exit. They found documents in the SUV, names of 7 other children, bank transfers from 3 different countries, falsified adoption papers stamped with a corrupt official's signature. Everything BC needed, everything justice needed. Mama Pat was arrested that morning, screaming threats that meant nothing anymore. Her network collapsed within weeks as BC's investigation went public, exposing officials, drivers, even the lawyer who handed me that pen with such practiced calm. 5 other children were recovered from holding locations across Lagos before they could be trafficked abroad. 5 other mothers got their miracles too, because one frightened woman had refused to stay silent. The story made national news. People who once looked away from my hawking tray now called me brave. But I didn't do it for praise. I did it because no mother should ever feel what I felt signing those papers, and no child should ever be treated like merchandise. Months later, life changed in ways I never imagined. A foundation reached out offering support for survivors of child trafficking schemes. They helped me start a proper provision store again, bigger than the one I lost. BC's reporting won an award, and she used part of the prize money to set up a legal fund for mothers fighting wrongful adoption cases. Today, Tobena is older, taller, his laugh still able to fix any broken day. Every night I tuck him into bed in our own home, and every night I whisper a quiet thank you to whatever force pulled me back from the edge of losing everything. I learned something that day at the airstrip, something I carry with me always. Sometimes your darkest moment isn't the end of your story. Sometimes it's the painful beginning of your turnaround, the moment your luck finally changes, not by magic, but because you refuse to give up even when everything in you wanted to. If Zainab's story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Subscribe now so you never miss interesting stories like this.